Sure.
Okay, hello, Michael. All right, let's just start with a simple question. Why don't you introduce yourself? Like what years did you study in RI and what did you study, like CCA and whatnot? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sure. I studied in RI through I guess RJ, so from year one through year six, from 2006 through 2011. So yeah, so I think so the first 4 years in RI, I think I actually DSA into RI through gymnastics, and then was lucky enough to be accepted, I guess, and to meet the cutoff to be admitted to RI, and it's been a pretty much a blast, and we had a good time. And I think my last 2 years I was in 11 SO3D. So, wow, that sounds really ancient compared to your class years, but yes. That is what I ended up studying. So I did a science stream for my last 2 years, and then I think in art, uh, so I was studying 11 science stream for my last 2 years in RJ, and then in RI, I think I did. I think it was. I think I did like a yeah. I did like a normal science route. But I think overall, my years at RI, I remember them most fondly through my involvements with my extracurricular activities. My studies were probably not the most amazing, but managed to get by. So managed to scrape by. So I consider myself fortunate to be able to, have been part of the, called the Raffles experience
Okay.
for 6 years there.
Then since you seem to quite like gymnastics, then why don't you share a bit about like gymnastics? Like how did you like interested into gymnastics and why RI? Yeah, actually, why RI?
Yeah.
Why did you DSA RI? Yeah.
I think at that time, I'm not sure if gymnastics still offered as an extracurricular in RI right now. I think it might have been phased out a few years ago. But I did gymnastics, starting like in primary school. And at that time, the other schools that were offering gymnastics as an extracurricular activity in in secondary school were I think, and then there's Hwa Chong, and there's SGI, and a few others as well. So in terms of, and I think my coach was more closely affiliated in primary school. My coach was more closely affiliated with the coach with RI. So I ended up kind of following there. And my siblings actually went to Raffles as well. So there's all that kind of there's all that basic connection to Raffles. Even though my parents are actually from Hwa Chong, which is pretty funny. Um, albeit at different times. But I think that's how I actually we got to RI in the first place. But actually in RI, I was actually pretty involved with the photography club as well as the prefectorial board. So I think at the end, I think by my fourth year, I was, I think, vice captain for gymnastics, and then chairperson, or what you call it, for photography club, and I was involved with RIPB as well. And by then in JC, I actually stopped with gymnastics, and then I actually ended up being more involved with the student council as well as mock dance or modern dance. I'm not sure if this is called modern dance there.
Yeah, it's still called modern dance. All right.
Perfect.
Now, why don't you share a bit about the prefectorial board then? Because most people aren't actually in the prefectorial board. It takes quite a bit to step up and take part in the elections in prefectorial board.
Yeah,
So yeah, why don't you
yeah,
share a
yeah.
bit?
Yeah, I would say it definitely takes some level of courage to put yourself out there, and a little shamelessness maybe. You basically, what you're trying to do is that you're trying to garner votes, right, from people. And I think
Yeah,
it's the same process for student council, but maybe a little bit easier if people know you from like secondary school. But in secondary school, think about it, right? You're basically putting yourself out there. It's like, hey, Isaiah, hey, Kahong, please vote for me. Then, and then how will you, it's like, it's basically like running for elections in the government. It's like your past gets brought up, and your character, your character, your reputation all gets brought up when people decide whether or not to vote for you, right? And all of it is hearsay. And so you're very much accountable to your peers through your behavior, both in and out of the classroom. And I think that was probably for me one of the more challenging parts, because your track record is out there for everyone to see. and you're going to have to be like squeaky clean in terms of your reputation. You can't be like, cheating on tests. You can't be like, being a bully to your friends. Not that I was, hopefully not. But I think, being able to lead by example was probably the biggest lesson that I learned from my time with the prefectorial board. And, especially when it comes to enforcing, enforcing rules, which was probably the least pleasant part about the job on your friends, especially if they like did something wrong, was really, really challenging, right? And I think in order for you to be in that position of like authority, do that, you need to be able to gain the respect. And I think that for me was probably one of the more difficult parts or challenging parts about my time with the prefectorial board. So I think student council to a certain extent was easier because I had my 4 years of RI, so people kind of knew me from there. And so like basically half the school kind of like knew you from there. And if you have a good reputation in secondary school, you probably have a much easier time getting voted in for student council afterwards.
Okay, then why don't you like talk about some teachers that you remember, like maybe from prefectorial board, gymnastics, or even like coaches? Now, I'm sure there's some teachers that have had an impact on you in your years in Raffles.
Oh, definitely. Quite a few, really. So I think in terms of prefectorial board, our advisor at the time was Mr. Teo Chai Yao. And he was just like really, really tall. He'll be laughing if he listens to this, but he's this really, really tall and lanky teacher. And he was the basic discipline master of RI at the time. And so he was really, really strict. But deep down inside, he was actually a really, really nice person. But he had to be strict, for the sake of like enforcing discipline. He was a discipline master, and he had to deal with these bunch of like teenage boys that breaking the rules. So it's hard to be nice all the time, even his shoes. But I think for him, there was one time where I learned a lot from him, and I think, long story short, I can't remember the exact details, but a bunch of, I'm not sure if it's still a rule in RI, but a bunch of like in secondary school, a bunch of like my classmates were like changing in the classroom, which was like not allowed, right? And I don't know if it's still allowed, but I was still not allowed there. But anyway, they were changing the classroom, and then I think at that time I was still like a prefect elect, so I wasn't like fully I hadn't fully become like a prefect yet, but I didn't really do anything about it because I was a little scared, to be like go up to your classmates like, hey, you guys can't do that. So he walked in and he noticed that they were changing the classroom and I wasn't doing anything about it. And I think he basically, after like he dealt with them, he kind of like sat me aside and kind of and talked to me. It's like, if you basically need to stick to your guns and be respectful to them, and once you put on like the prefect badge and wear those black shoes, you're really going to have to be accountable to the people watching you all the time. And if they see you kind of turning a blind eye to what they're doing, right, you are going to be it's going to be much more difficult for you in the future to be able to do the same thing. And I think from that, well, I think it was a pretty small. I think to most people it's probably a pretty small lesson, but to me it kind of reinforced like the part about like being true to yourself as a prefect, and like being true to what you stand for. So I mean, now in terms of what I do, it doesn't really have as much impact in terms of I'm not telling people to, hey, you can't change the classrooms anymore. But I think if you are standing up for it, if you have certain values that are important to you, you really need to be able to stand for stay true to it, no matter how difficult or how challenging the situation appears to be. And even if everyone is kind of doing one thing, as long as you're sticking true to your values, right, I think that is going to say a lot more about your character that is unflappable and very enduring. And I think that to me, especially as like a, call it 14, 15-year-old boy at that time, it was really impactful. And I think from there, it really helped me it really gave me a lot more courage, I guess, to do what I think was right. And even if people like didn't like me for telling them you can't change the classroom, but I think they respected me a lot more afterwards, because I guess to a certain extent the rules are the rules, and I'm not afraid of who you are to say it. And even if you're my friend, I'll still uh, talk to you about it and kind of call you out. But at the same time, it's not just because you're my friend and then you go. So I think that was probably the biggest lesson for me that I learned from Mr. Teal.
Oh, that's really nice. It seems like you're a very scary prefect to deal with.
Was it very scary? Oh, maybe. I think that's very nice, but maybe other people would think. Maybe if you ask other people in my year, they would think otherwise. Yeah.
All right. Then what about like classroom or like a memorable lesson? Like maybe or house activity even. What house were you from? Sorry, I haven't asked that yet.
No
Uh,
worries. Yeah. I'll say, wow, there are actually many teachers that I learned a lot from during my time in my 6 years there. So it's going to be really hard to name off some names because I frankly forgotten some of them already. But generally I thought that most of my teachers were great. And I want to give a special shout out to one of my teachers who's actually still in RI right now and he might be teaching you, Mr. Chan Jiale, who I think is the math HOD in RJ. And Mr. Chan was my teacher was my form teacher, I guess, in my year 6 days. And I think my class was his first form class since joining RI. So he was like a brand new teacher, I guess, sort of a brand new teacher at the time. And not that his rest of his classes were memorable, but his first class was especially memorable because he wanted to appear really, really strict. And so first thing he did when he came in was that he slammed his books on the table and like basically like shouting like, "All right, class, something about time for class," and basically gave like a very no nonsense attitude. And I think it was really hilarious in hindsight because he turned out to be this really, really nice guy who was really, really nervous on his first day at RI, and was just trying to give sort of like a very strict impression. Other teachers that I remember very fondly include Mr. Law in my time with my secondary school years. Miss Jennifer, I forgot her last name, who was my photography teacher. And yeah, a few others, but I apologize to my teachers if I don't name you right now.
Yeah. Okay, then.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
yeah. One more question that you had. I was involved with Morrison Richardson or MR during my time.
Oh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, both from MR as well. Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah. Best house, and I'm biased because I think I was house captain during during 1 year there. Yeah, long time ago, but that was fun.
House captain, then like you must have like created some initiatives or like be involved in some house activities or something.
Yeah, just to clarify, I was house captain in RJ, not RI. RI was someone else called Hao Zhi, different guy. But then in RJ, I did student council because I think at least during my times, the head of the house had to be from student council, so it was a little different compared to RI. Initiatives. Wow.
Or anything about MR.
I would say that I think I remember very fondly of my time with the student council as a whole. MR was definitely a big part of it, and I think helped a lot. And I think the way that I relate to my student council experience was, I think the house captains at that time had a big role to play during like orientation, like National Day celebrations, and basically any other big school event. And I think some of my most memorable moments, especially my year 5, year 6 days, was call it orientation, organizing orientation, as for the new year 5s, as well as Take 5, which is, I'm not sure if you guys still have it, but our event was held in Sentosa. during our time, and our National Day celebrations were held actually at what used to be Zook. So I think during that year, I think the school was being renovated, so the school hall was not like available for us to use. So we had to go outside and kind of be resourceful, and we ended up finding Zook, which is pretty cool.
Right. You take on a lot of responsibilities. Like you say, you are in student council, you're house captain, and you're like the photography club like leader as well. So how did you like balance this with like your studies in Raffles, or did you have like teachers that helped you, or friends that like helped you catch up with your studies, or were you just that good?
No, my studies are not very good. I'll be the first to admit that I was not the I was never on the B's list, and I was not the model student for sure. But so gymnastics and photography club and prefectorial board was all secondary school. JC was mod dance and student council. So I mean, it wasn't like all at one shot. But I think, I actually pretty much struggled with my studies, especially in year 5, year 6. I mean, I was never like fantastic in my studies in my first 4 years, but I think year 5, year 6 was really when, I really had kind of like an awakening that A levels were knocking on my doorsteps, and I wasn't a very good student at the time. And I really had to kind of like prioritize, like, actually learning. And I think for me, most of my days were actually spent more with like my extracurricular activities, because that's what I actually enjoyed a lot more compared to studying, as much as H2 chem was exciting, or H2 bio was exciting, but I just enjoyed my hanging out with my other friends a lot more. So I think, obviously with the transition from in year 6, right, when you kind of tailor up your student house, your activities with your extracurriculars, then you kind of had to focus a little bit more and kind of be a little bit more serious about what you're studying. And I think also with the prospect of kind of, I think up until that point for me, I had pretty much kind of taken like the autopilot route, right? You're going through PSLE, and you're going through secondary school, and then going through JC. And then you never, at least for me, I didn't really think about what was next, right? And I think when I thought about university applications and like scholarship stuff, applications, I kind of thought to myself, I think it was one of my first few times thinking about what I want myself as a career in the future, right? And what I want to do like after JC or like after Army. And I think from there, it kind of gave me a bit more motivation to study and focus a little bit more and kind of think about my future a little bit more. And I would say that I think gave me sufficient motivation to at least do decently enough during A levels. And not perfect score, unfortunately, but still good enough to do well to get into the school I want to go to.
I see. Yeah. Okay, then.
But don't follow my academic track. It's not very good.
All right. Okay, then let me just ask a very simple question. What was your favorite place in the school campus? Like, was there any special corner, or maybe even just your classroom? Like somewhere that maybe after school you would just go and hang out with your friends, or like a man cave of some sorts in the school compound.
Year 5, year 6, definitely council room. I spent way too much time there, but it was great. I think I spent a lot of my time there, and a lot of my friends, all my closest friends, were from there. And I think that is, that to me was special. Spent way too much time there, but it was great. And I think year 1 to year 4, I'll say, the underneath the clock tower, really overlooking the AstroTurf. And then you're pretty close to the canteen. And so that's great. I think that was always like a really nice and breezy spot that I enjoy a lot. And, go always like play soccer with their friends near the AstroTurf, if the AstroTurf is still there.
Okay, let's see then. How would you say that RI has influenced you as a person you are today? Apart from just now when you said that he really made you a more accountable and like responsible person to stand up for yourself. Like, in what other ways has RI made you the person you are today?
Yeah, in terms of the university and my career, I guess I think the work ethic, like diligence, studying hard, I credit most of that to Raffles, for sure. And I think as you mentioned, being a prefect slash student council member was also like formative to the way that I approach leadership positions, especially since you really need to be able to lead by example and be accountable to the people that you're leading and serving, and especially when you're serving them. I think those two are probably I think these two lessons are probably the most transferable in terms of how it's affected my life, like post raffles. I think to a certain extent, I'll say that a lot of my friends right now from Singapore are still actually refugees, and that connection to them, and I think it's always made me a little bit closer to home, and kind of ties me a little bit closer to home. Right now, I'm actually based in San Francisco, so I don't get to go home that often. And I think whenever I go back, having that same shared life experience and being connected through raffles always ties me a little bit closer to Singapore.
So it's like the interpersonal relationships you fostered during your time there that has really made you and helped you as you are today. Would you say so?
Yeah, and I think they form like a really strong call it support network. Yeah.
Okay.
And or I just call it a really good group of friends.
Okay. Let's move on to like the maybe a final few questions. What does the reflection spirit mean to you? I know this is like a very like weird question, but it's something that I have to ask as an interviewer, because it's something the school wants to know as well. So sorry about that.
Refugee spirit. I think I gave this question some thought, and I didn't really have a good answer for it. I think the pursuit for excellence in everything that we do is, I think, something that's very Raffles, right? I think most people in the school want to do the best. They don't really do the best academically, but I think they generally have a certain drive, certain motivation to them. And I think that's what it stands to me. That pursuit for excellence. And I think, as I said, that it's kind of transferred a little bit over to my work ethic, especially in college, and the way I approach work now. You definitely want to do your best in the things that you do, and you want to keep learning and try your best in the things that you do. And it's not really so much so about getting all A's in A levels, even though I wish I did that. But I think that strive for growth, that strive for excellence is something that I think is something that means a lot to me in having that growth mindset.
So you would say it's like the passion, the self-motivation, driving yourself to, maybe not being like the world's best, but like being the very best that you could be is like what you think the refugee spirit means to you. It's pushing yourself constantly.
I'll say that definitely has more aspects to it, right? There's, I think the model is still nurturing a thinker, leader, pioneer, right? And I have a bit more thoughts on that later, but I think to me, one of the most, I guess, significant things that kind of stood out to me about Raffles, at least, was that everyone there was very talented in their own way. And look at all my friends right now who are from Raffles. They may not have graduated with they may not have all graduated as present scholars, but they're all generally doing very well in the things that they put their minds to. And so I think that, to me, is probably the most iconic part about the refugee spirit to me.
And then you said you had some thoughts on nurturing thinkers, leaders, and pioneers just now. So could you expand on it?
I think kind of links a little bit to the I guess question 7, right? Which what are my wishes and aspirations for the school?
Your wishes, sorry.
Yeah, and this is a somewhat maybe some critical, but maybe some of a different kind of thought to it. At least for me, and maybe it's changed now, right? I felt in Raffles, I felt that most of my options were very much limited to nurturing the doctor, lawyer, engineer, or civil servant, right? There's a lot of push, which are all great, all great like career options. And but I just thought that, or rather, I just felt a lot of, kind of like these are like the pathways to success when I was a student at RJ, because plastered on the walls of RI that were like, oh, these are the prison scholars, these are the SAF OM scholars, these are the SPF OM scholars here. So all civil servants to the extent. And there's always like oh yeah, I want to be in NUS medicine, blah 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 blah, which are all great options. And I think one of my aspirations, I guess, for the school, is, I think, encouraging a great diversity of like career aspirations and thought about what you want to do in the future, right? And I think RI is really changing a little bit of that by introducing more curriculums towards, for example, like more CS related kind of modules or classes, right? I think it's very important. But I think just encouraging greater exposing students to a greater spectrum of career opportunities out there. For me, right, I didn't really think about what I want to study or my career options right until I was about to graduate and when I was about to apply for university. And I think at that time, I didn't even know what existed outside of like, NUS medicine or some kind of like overseas university with some kind of scholarship from the government. And I think, exposing students to the fact that there's a lot of roads out there, and just because you don't make it to, this school, you don't land the scholarship, doesn't mean that your life is over. But there's a lot of things out there that you can do, and there's a lot of pathways to success. And I think I wish the school did that a little bit more often. Just because you encounter a minor roadblock in terms of like, oh, for example, I didn't get into the school that I wanted to, like post Raffles, it doesn't mean that your life is over. It means that you might just have a different path, might be a different door, and encouraging or instilling that sense of like resilience and that sense of open-mindedness towards new possibilities is something that I wish the school did a little bit more.
So like encouraging different paths rather than like the traditional, very Singaporean-minded, like doctor, engineer, this kinds of things, and letting students do what they really want to be, and taking alternate routes and being more daring and stepping forward to go out of their comfort zone. Would you say?
You said Singaporean-minded, not me.
Okay.
So, all right. You said Singaporean-minded. I didn't say anything about that one, but I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, then again, it's also a bit of maybe I speak from a position of privilege as well, because not all career options are viable, right? If you are for everyone. So maybe I'm speaking from a position of privilege in that sense. But I do really wish that that Raffles did a better job of like, exposing students to different like opportunities career-wise. Yeah.
Right, I guess. Okay, then any final thoughts or like any final things you would like to add on to the discussion so that we can take on?
I don't think so. At least for the two of you, hopefully, I'm not sure what you guys are planning to do outside of school after you graduate, but I really hope you guys take your time, think about it. And just because everyone's applying to NUS medicine does not mean you have to apply to NUS medicine, or just because everyone wants to be a lawyer doesn't mean you have to be a lawyer. There's a lot of different interesting things to do out there. And I just hope you guys think about it and talk to more people like outside the school, like maybe people who are currently working right now to kind of figure out what they're doing. Because I think that it's a lot more, you can learn a lot more that way besides cramming for A-levels through your textbooks, which is important. But I think it is a stepping stone towards your future career. I think it's not really, so I think as you probably figured out, it's not really so much so a message for the school, but I think more for the two of you. Hopefully you learned something today as well, but if not, hopefully it wasn't a complete waste of time.
All right, thank you. Me and Kahong will definitely keep that in mind. Okay, yeah.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Also, you mentioned, I have one question. You mentioned that now you are based in America, right? So
Yes.
have you tried, attempted in any way, or maybe back in Singapore, reaching out back to your old refugees friend from year 1-4 or even RJ? Or have
Yeah.
you just texted
Yeah.
them normally or arranged meetup, something like that?
Yeah, I was actually back in Singapore in, call it 2 months ago, in January. I guess 2 months ago, in January. It was my first time visiting after about a year and a half due to COVID. Yeah, and I hung out with a bunch of my basically like ex-Raffles people, which is great. I met up with like the head boy, head boy of my year. I played tennis with a couple of my other friends all my year as well. And I think prior to that, I usually meet up with my JC friends or my JC classmates like every time I'm back as well. So I do try to stay connected, and it's always fun. It's always like kind of a bit like a call it time capsule or like a time machine, and kind of seeing where everyone is with their lives. Some already have kids, which is kind of crazy. And some of them are very successful in their own right, doing their own things, and some of them have actually completely pivoted to starting their own businesses or doing something else. And I think that to me is something that's always very inspirational, and I credit that a lot to the time at RI for sure.
Oh, well, that's great to hear that you're still keeping in touch with all of your friends in Singapore as well. Okay, yeah. So I think that's about it for everything. All right. Okay. So I've come to the end of the session. Thank you very much for taking part in this interview with me and Kahong. I think
Thank you
we've
very
really
much.
learned a lot and gained an insight into how life in RI was back then. And just your experiences have been very interesting to both of us. All right. So as we said, we will send the whole interview video to you later, so you can take a look at it. And if there's anything you would like us to take out, or some parts you would like us to add on, or anything like that, we'll do it for you. And
okay,
oh yeah, and
you can probably just take out the part about the funny moments.
Oh yeah, the funny one. Yeah, I guess that's a bit awkward. Yeah.
No, I just have too much background material because but that's pretty funny. But that's I probably shouldn't have that in the National Archive of Singapore, because if not, my friends will kill me. Okay, that'd be really funny though. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we both of us wish you a great day ahead. Not sure what time it is in California right now, but hopefully you have a great rest of the day. And yeah. So yeah. Bye. Bye, Michael.
And take care. And all the best. All the best to your studies as well as to this project. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.